Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Anna Reitz, and if you are joining me here on my channel for the very first time, I make beauty, lifestyle, and wellness videos once a week, and they all kind of are packaged with a very simple signature laid-back style. So for today's video, if you can't tell from the title already, I'm going to be sharing my top 5 effective tips for giving up alcohol for an entire month. So we're halfway through dry January right now. So if you came across this video because you are kind of looking for that last bit of motivation to get through the end of the month, or if you're just at a point in life where you're thinking about your relationship with alcohol and whether or not it's serving you at this moment in time and you want to just take a month off, I think that you'll find these tips also very informative and effective. So before we dive into the 5 tips, I just want to give a very quick abridged version of my personal journey with alcohol and my relationship with it over the years. I think that a lot of you folks might find it very relatable, and it also will just make you understand why I feel qualified to talk about this topic. So quickly diving into the abridged version, starting with my college years. I think like most people that go to college, you'll find that the binge drinking culture is very prevalent. Like every weekend is sort of focused on the different parties, and then when you turn 21, you're like introduced to the bar scene for the first time. And while it's a really fun phase of life, it is just kind of a lot of alcohol and drinking, and it's sort of like what you become programmed to do. Like you look forward to the weekends and you can just kind of cut loose. And I think no one's really questioning it as much at that phase. I was definitely sort of wrapped up in that sort of party culture like all of my friends were. And then when I graduated and got into the real world and had a full-time job, I definitely tamed out a bit, but I feel like I was still treating the weekends like I was in college again, just sort of operating in the mentality of going out, partying a lot, like waking up hungover a lot, but just, going to a boozy brunch or sleeping it off or laughing it off. And I feel like most of my peers were sort of in that phase as well. I just didn't really feel like I had completely grown out of my like college drinking lifestyle. It had just moved like strictly to maybe like one night a week. So then later into my mid 20s is when I started to really get more serious about my health and wellness, and of course like my career growth and everything, and just kind of like maturing a little bit. And at that point I really started to sort of question the role of alcohol in my life, and I just felt like during the week I would be so diligent in like taking care of my body and my mind, eating well, working out, like feeling really good. And then on the weekends, like if I did go out and drink or, have some wine on a Friday or Saturday night, wake up with a hangover or anything like that, I just was like taking 2 steps back in my wellness journey. So at that point is when I really started to look at ways to just cut it out for periods at a time. So I would take like a couple weekends off or maybe a full month off. So then when I was about 28, I read a book that absolutely blew my mind and made me rethink how I think about alcohol altogether. And I'll talk about that book a little bit more in this video later on. But it was at that point that I really just kind of decided that my life was just better without it. So I haven't really drank in like over a year at this point. Now, I know that most people do not want to go to that extreme and cut it out completely. That was just my own personal choice and what was best for myself. But I really do feel that as a collective, especially with folks around my age and this millennial generation, we're all starting to just be more mindful about what we're putting into our bodies and like how we are sort of going about living our best life. And sometimes alcohol can really, really hinder that personal growth. So if you're on this journey where you're just looking to explore what it's like to not drink for a month, a couple months, I think that these tips will be so helpful in navigating all these kind of new and sometimes really scary experiences if you are doing this for the first time or just kind of struggling to find your motivation. So with all that said, without further ado, let's jump into these 5 effective tips for giving up alcohol for a month. So my first tip is to find your motivation. And how I recommend doing that is sitting down and doing a workshop with yourself and write down all of the reasons why you're deciding to give up alcohol. Make sure you don't leave anything out. So you can rank it by priority, but it might be your career growth. Maybe you're looking to get a new job or, launch a business or anything like that. It could be your physical fitness. Maybe you are wanting to take it to the next level at the gym, or you're training for a marathon, or you're just trying to get in better shape. Maybe it has to do with anxiety and depression and your mental health, and you're finding that alcohol really is, not helping in that area. So it could be a number of things. I really think just going through the motions of writing it out, seeing it on paper, and really being honest with yourself about what your goals are and why you're feeling motivated to do this in the first place. And then on the flip side, I would make a list of all the ways that alcohol has not been serving you or has been detrimental to your life. So I think we all kind of know what these things are, and it's often, you're feeling tired and sluggish. Maybe you're just feeling unmotivated. Maybe you've had one too many really bad hangovers recently. You feel like it's getting in the way of you living your active lifestyle, getting in the way of you just like living your best life. I think these reasons can be so personal, so I don't really want to tell you what to write down, but I think if you can just be completely vulnerable and honest with yourself and write down all the ways that alcohol has been bringing you down lately, just put it on paper, look at it, fold it up, save it in your Word doc, just have it there as kind of a mental starting point and go back to it when you're feeling tempted or unmotivated throughout the month. So tip number 2 is to embrace new social settings. So I know that personally for me, this was a huge point of fear and anxiety whenever I would decide to quit drinking, was that my social life was just going to disappear, or I was going to have FOMO and not be able to go out, or that my friends would judge me. I think that there's just so much sort of socialization around alcohol, and when you take that out of the picture, we have these false narratives in our head that say that our life is not going to be rich and full of great friendships and great social experiences. I can tell you firsthand that is not true. And if anything, I feel like my friendships and my just joy in social settings is completely more than it ever even was when I was drinking. But my tip here is to take 2 schools of thought, I think, for 2 different personality types. So when you quit drinking for a month, I think, again, you need to be honest with yourself and decide if you feel like going to a bar or going to a house party or being around your friends while they're drinking is going to be tempting for you. And if that is the case, I would just say avoid those situations for a month. It's just a month. It's not that long. I know that FOMO is real, especially with social media, but if you need to avoid them for your own personal journey, just give it a break for a month. And then with that, I would say to take charge of new social experiences for you and your friends. So that is going to be like calling up your friends to go for a hike, checking out a new fitness studio or yoga class, or taking a cooking class in town, or like hosting a game night where you can invite people to bring alcohol if they want, but you certainly have non-alcoholic versions, going to the movies. I feel like there's just like so much stuff to do that you just don't really consider when like your default is just to go drinking at the bar after work or on the weekends. But I mean, there's like flea markets, like cool crafts you can do, like so much stuff. I know crafts kind of sounds lame, but there's so many things that I feel like are so fun and great new experiences you can have that don't have to require alcohol. So then the other school of thought would be to just embrace those experiences and not let the fact that you aren't drinking hold you back from going out, going to the bars, going to see your friends at parties or happy hours or whatever. So personally, when I quit drinking, there was a phase where I was kind of afraid to go out to the bars, but I eventually got over that. And now I make it a point to not let the fact that I don't drink hold me back from going anywhere. So I actually love checking out the bar scene here in Nashville. I am kind of becoming a master at ordering cool mocktails, and I'm seeing that so many bars are putting non-alcoholic mocktails on their menus. I hope that you're seeing this in your city as well, but it's been such a cool trend, and I'm always like so relieved when there's like some non-alcoholic mocktails on the menu. I also work in an industry, I work in hospitality PR, that I, for my job, often have to be at these bars and restaurants or happy hours or opening nights and things like that where alcohol is there, and I just make it work. I order my mocktail, or I order whatever soda and lime and bitters, and usually the bartender's gonna pour it in a glass that just looks like a cocktail and no one asks questions. But I think that you don't have to just avoid those situations altogether. I would also just encourage you in these social settings and dealing with friends is to not be preachy or higher than thou, and not, cut people off or cut people out of your life just because they don't understand what you're going through, or why you're deciding to do this. So that can be such a huge turnoff. And I think, we're all on our own journey with everything in life. So just being humble and just like, look, I'm just giving up alcohol for a month, but if you come off and like make it like preachy, like you should do this, or your life would improve if you did this, I would just avoid that altogether. So my tip number 3 is to find new hobbies and new ways to de-stress. And those could be one and the same. So a new hobby could be like anything that you've sort of been passionate about, but you've been pushing aside or afraid to try. I think you will find that you have the motivation, the time, and the energy to just go after it. So that could be like, picking up tennis or learning how to code or, cooking, reading books. It's whatever. There's so many hobbies. You know what hobbies are. But also, I would definitely find a hobby or an activity or something to fill your time in the evening. So if you are going to be staying home a lot during this month, the evenings can kind of be the tough and sometimes more tempting times. If there's something that you've had in the back of your head that you've been sort of afraid to start, I really think like this is the time to do it. Okay, so my tip number 4 is to embrace all of the really awesome non-alcoholic beverages that are available to you. So this could be making mocktails at home. There are so many great recipes online. I can share some down below. You can make a really beautiful, delicious, aesthetic, cute mocktail. Put it in a really nice glass that you have on your bar cart. Put some nice garnishes on it. I completely know what it feels like to just want that drink in your hand that you're holding and kind of like a nice little something to sip. So also, like I said, a lot of bars have mocktails now on the menu, and you can also just request one from the bartender. My kind of go-to when I'm at a bar and they don't have a mocktail on the menu, I just say like, hey, can you make me a non-alcoholic drink that just isn't too sweet? Any flavor profiles that you like, if you like ginger or you like grapefruit and citrus, like most knowledgeable bartenders can whip something together. And look, it's not weird. It's not the first time they've ever been asked that. Don't be freaked out or embarrassed to ask a bartender to make you a mocktail. And then also, there are some really cool non-alcoholic spirits that have hit the market recently. So a couple that come to mind right now are Seedlip. I think that it's a UK brand, but they're kind of like shrubs. They're like plant-based non-alcoholic spirits, really beautiful branding and packaging. I personally haven't had them, but I definitely want to order some. Another really cool non-alcoholic product that recently hit the market is Kin Euphorics. So I'll leave the link down below as well. But what it is basically is a lot of adaptogens put into a non-alcoholic spirit. So if you don't know that much about adaptogens, which I know just very little, and what I do know is that they kind of like work to balance out what you need at that moment. So if you're like needing energy, it can like adapt to your levels, or if you're needing to kind of chill out, it can adapt to what you need there. But I recently ordered it's called the High Road. It is that non-alcoholic spirit, and I love their branding. Their tagline is lifted mind, relaxed body, kindred spirit. So yeah, the non-alcoholic spirits might not be for everyone. I personally like just like having these beautiful products on my bar cart, something fun to experiment in my mocktails with, and I just think they're a fun new world to kind of discover while you're in this phase of giving up alcohol. And then lastly, this is probably my favorite thing to do in the evenings when I just want something pretty to sip, is I just get kombucha and pour it into a wine glass or pour it into a cocktail glass. So I do this like almost every single weekend. I will usually like pop a CBD gummy and then pour myself a nice glass of kombucha. My current favorite is the Watermelon Wonder from GT's. Like, oh my God, if you haven't tried this kombucha, it is so freaking good. I've been like going through the big bottles of it and just like drinking it nonstop. It is so good. But yeah, so go explore all of these new fun things to sip on during the weekends if you're just looking for something nice to like hold in your hand and like a nice drink that, looks pretty while you're socializing. If that's your thing, then go check out all those products. Okay, so this has already been such a long video, but I have one more tip, and I think it is the most important for getting through the 30 days of not drinking, and that is to read some inspirational books. I'm sorry if this is lame, but this is truly what helped me find the strength to just like cut out alcohol completely, or, cut it out during different phases of my life. So, the book that I read a few years ago that really just changed my whole perspective on everything was a book called This Naked Mind by Annie Grace. And this book was so life changing for me for two reasons, I would say. So, the first reason is because she spoke about this gray area that I identified with so much, but I didn't really understand how to articulate it, or I didn't really know that other people felt like this as much. It's basically like you don't consider yourself an alcoholic or anything. You haven't had like a rock bottom moment, or you don't like wake up and drink alcohol or anything like that, but you also just sort of feel like you don't have a complete control over it, and it's just not serving your life anymore. So she talks a lot about this movement of drinkers who are giving it up for periods of time or for their entire life, and they just decide that it is not benefiting them anymore. And it doesn't mean that you have to go to AA or have this like extreme experience before you jump off the train. You just kind of decide that it's not working for your life anymore. The other reason why I love this book is she is so data, science, and fact driven. This isn't just like a memoir of her own life. She is talking to like scientists, social researchers, quoting and sourcing credible data and studies. And it's all about debunking myths around alcohol. So, like, an example of that is that alcohol helps you feel less stressful. So, she looked at all of these studies and, also looked at her own personal experience. And when you're stressed out in the evening because of something, whether it's work or a family situation or money, and you drink to get rid of those stresses, your stress is going to be exacerbated in the morning when you wake up. Alcohol does not remove those stresses. It temporarily numbs you, and in the morning, that shit in your life is still there, and you have a really horrible headache. The other book that I want to talk about that I read about a year ago is called Sober Curious. So again, this book speaks to a lot of the people that are like just dipping their toe in not drinking and giving it up for like a month at a time or 2 or 3 months at a time. And the author's name is Ruby Warrington, and she is really into energy and vibrations and what it feels like to be in the flow, like when your life is in the flow and when it feels like it's not. And so she talks a lot about how not drinking actually elevates your vibrations to attract greater things into your life. So it is so fascinating. But again, neither of these books are going to be like preachy, like you have to give up alcohol, like all or nothing. It really is more about this sober, curious movement, and give it up for a little bit, or just see how I feel giving it up for a month or 2 weeks, and maybe you go back to it and maybe you take another month off. It's just this very approachable, not intimidating mindset to it. So real quick, before I close out this video, I also want to talk about a couple other things that aren't really tips, but just things I wanted to share that I did in my own journey. So this is just kind of a fun thing I would do whenever I was maybe being tempted or feeling like questioning whether or not, cutting out alcohol for a phase was the right choice. I will sometimes Google successful people or celebrities that don't drink at all, whether that's that they have just never drank in their life or they just gave it up later in life. But I mean, it's people like Jennifer Lopez, who's one of my all-time favorite humans. She doesn't drink and looks freaking amazing at 50 years old. But like Pharrell, the author Brene Brown, if you're familiar with her, she doesn't drink. I'll pop up a couple other people on the screen here because there's just like this really like long running list of celebrities or just successful people that I'm just like, well, damn, if they're doing it, like they're onto something. So, if you have stuck with me through this entire video, I really hope that you enjoyed it and found it insightful. If there are any topics that you want me to dive in deeper in a longer video, I am happy to. I feel like I could make an entire video and talk for like an hour about the ways that your life will improve when you do cut out alcohol. Again, whether that's for just a month or just 6 months or forever. It's really your own personal journey, but I really promise you that you will be surprised at the ways that life just rewards you for taking that time off and taking care of yourself for a little bit. So if you like this video, I hope that you will subscribe to my channel, like the video, share this with anyone else who you think would find it useful. Look out for more videos from me on lifestyle, wellness, and beauty topics, all with a simple laid back approach. Thank you again for being here with me today. I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.